Today we're looking at the M4A785M motherboard from Asus. Now this is a very well-rounded motherboard. It's great for a basic system or for a high-end system. It's really up to you. It doesn't really support Crossfire, but it does support hybrid Crossfire, and that's because it has onboard graphics. Now let's talk about this. This is using the 785 chipset from AMD. It's also got the SP710 Southbridge chipset right down here. So you do get 6 SATA ports. It does support the latest AM3 socket, so it will do everything AM3 up and then everything down too. So you're going to be able to do your Athlons, your Semprons, your Phenoms, your Phenom 2s, your Athlon 2s. They're all going to work in here with no problem. Up to 16 gigabytes of DDR2 memory, up to 1200 megahertz with overclocking, or up to 800 megahertz natively. So you can put some pretty fast DDR2 on here. Now it does have onboard graphics, as you'll see right over here. You do have a VGA and a DVI and an HDMI, and those are very useful because it does have the HD 4200 chipset in there. Onboard graphics, shared 512 megabytes of memory. That means that it will be pulling 512 megabytes of your DDR2 memory to use that as video memory. So you will only see, like, let's say if you have 4 gigs in here, you're going to see 3.5 in your Windows. It's going to take away that if you're using a 32-bit system. If you're using a 64-bit system, then it's going to notice it all. But very, very nice motherboard. Now, let's talk a little bit about that onboard graphics. What's cool about it is it's strong enough to do HD video, Blu-ray video, etc., etc. It does have the VGA, the DVI, and the HDMI port onboard natively, so you don't necessarily need a graphics card. But if you do want to use an ATI Radeon HD series graphics card, it will do hybrid Crossfire, which means it's going to use the onboard graphics to save you power when you're not doing anything that's high-powered 3D. When you're on a 2D desktop, it's going to just show it's going to use the onboard, and then when you want to switch to a game, you're going to do DirectX stuff, or you're going to render a video or whatever you're going to do with it, it will actually turn on the dedicated graphics card and use that instead. So it's very, very cool, very useful. You actually plug in the graphics card plug, and then you won't plug in the top one if you're going to be doing that hybrid Crossfire. So it's very cool. It will save you power. It's green. It's very nice. Now let's talk a little bit about the specs on this. Besides that, let's talk a little bit about slots, because you have 4 on here. You have 2 PCI. So very general use, and you do have 1 PCI Express X16 2.0. So if you do want to put a high-end graphics card on here to run with your high-end Phenom 2 or something like that, you do have that ability. It's not going to be a problem at all. You also have a standard PCI Express X1 slot, which is good for sound cards, but you might not need it because this thing has really nice onboard 8-channel HD audio, already built in. Has 6 SATA 2 ports. You can see those right over here. You do have 6 SATA 2.0 ports. So there's 3 gigabits per second, very fast with all the RAID functionality you could imagine, 0, 1, 5, and 0 plus 1 or 1 plus 0. So that's all very, very nice and good. Now, looking at the back panel, you got 1 PS2 right over here, 2 USB 2.0 ports. Here's your digital SPDIF, your Toslink cable connector, your HDMI port. You have the DVI and the VGA. Now, you can't use all these at the same time. You can only use one, but it does give you that selection. So whichever one you're using, it has it there. You have 4 more USB 2.0 ports, your 10100, 1000 Ethernet, and then, of course, finally, your 8-channel audio right there. So very, very nice motherboard. Again, it is socket AM3. Will support the latest processors. Does use the SP710 Southbridge chipset and the 785 Northbridge chipset, so it's very powerful. It's going to be using the latest HyperTransport 3.0 technology, and it will support the latest Phenom processors up to pretty much up to the fastest ones, except for the top few that are over 140 watts. It won't support those, but besides that, it will. Now, on top of that, all the general Asus features that you've seen, like all the little stuff that Asus motherboards come with, it also has all of that. It does have ExpressGate, which is really cool. If you don't know what ExpressGate is, basically, it's a tiny little Linux operating system built into the motherboard that does not require you to turn on Windows. You can boot into ExpressGate in about 5 seconds, and rather than actually going into Windows, waiting for it to load up, it'll load up in 5 seconds because it's a really small, light Linux-based operating system. It's going to give you internet, let you look at your pictures, let you surf the web, check your email, etc., stuff like that. Make a Skype phone call, let's say. Do all that kind of stuff without ever turning on Windows. That saves you a lot of time. It's really useful. So very, very, very nice motherboard. It's the M4A785M motherboard from Asus, and it does support all your AM3 processors. Sweet, sweet board if you want a general system, or if you want a high-end system. It'll cover both. No problem, and it's at a good price. So good stuff from Asus. If you have any questions on this motherboard, feel free to email me. I'll see you guys next time. For more information on the Asus M4A785M Micro ATX motherboard, go to com.puter.tv and type in M4A785M. For Computer TV, I'm Albert.